Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Rise and Grind. And I'm 72 the Architect, aka Jason B. And today we're going to talk about why the shortcuts. Are we choosing too many shortcuts in life versus the long way around and getting it done right? So stay tuned here as we get going. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Rise and Grind. And what are we going to talk about today? Shortcuts. That's right, shortcuts. As I was reading in the Daily Stoic and more thoroughly in Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, I came across something that was very impactful. And the short quote of it said from Meditations 12.1, it said, "You could enjoy the very moment and all things that you are praying to reach by taking the long way around. If you stop depriving yourself." Interesting quote, but I think there's a lot more to it. And when I read Gregory Hayes's definition of the quote, it had actually much more context, and it made me think about my choices. Sometimes in life, or other times in life, or maybe the primary times in life, in the beginning that you do anything, that you're going to have to deal with doing things the hard way or the long way around. But it's not easy. A lot of times our egos, our minds, our bodies, our how tired we are is really going to talk to us in so many ways and saying that maybe we should do it just the short way. Could I just cut a little bit of the discipline, or maybe that I cut some of the mundane basic steps to get me where I'm at in a position that I don't have to do the simple things. But along the way, we have seen this week in the news, like in the submersible that was lost out at sea, trying to search for Titanic or visit Titanic, had an unfortunate event where the vehicle had imploded and 5 individuals lost their lives. It was reported that they had cut the corners in making this submersible. Notions of cheap parts, carbon fiber, a Xbox controller as a directional steering wheel to actually drive this vehicle, and this submersible had imploded on itself. At least it was reported yesterday. But there are some things that ask us questions. And then, did these people take an unnecessary risk, or a risk that was more than what they really wanted to afford with their lives? So it brings back the notion of what actually Marcus Aurelius said in his Meditations. And you can buy Meditations anywhere you like, in bookstores. And I'll read some of the more than just the short quote. And I have actually two versions of Meditations. I have Gregory Hayes's edition. You can buy this on Amazon. And then I also have George Long's version, which is written in kind of like Shakespearean. And they both have two different ways of saying the same thing, but they both have context. But I'll just read one, so just to give you fair mind and fair shot. So it says that everything you're trying to reach by taking the long way around, you could have right now in this moment. And if you'd only stop thwarting your own attempts, if you'd only let go of the past and entrust the future to providence and guide the present towards reverence and justice. Now, what does he mean by reverence and justice? He goes on to say that reverence and justice means this: reverence. So you'll accept what you're allotted, nature intended for you and for it. Justice. He says, so that you'll speak the truth frankly without evasion and act as you should and as other people deserve. So that's kind of like being real, so to speak. But he says more about it a little bit more in Meditations 12.1 if you want to follow along. Don't let anything deter you. Other people's misbehavior, your own misconceptions, what people will say, or feelings of body that covers you. Let the effects part take care of those. And if and when it's time to depart, you shunt everything and aside and accept the mind by divinity within. If it's increasing to live, you're afraid, but never beginning to live properly, then you're worthy of the world that you made. No longer an alien in your own land, no longer shocked by everything in the events that are unheard of and abbreviations, no longer the mercy of this or that. So what does he mean by that? He means a lot of things. He means, are you, and I kind of was talking to some friends about this earlier, and good morning to some of those friends that I was actually talking to live on Clubhouse. I was talking about this. There are decisions. Sometimes we are in this decision making where we are over strategizing things, and it can be very, very personal. It can be very emotionally draining us, and we expect people to do the right thing, and then we get frustrated with people when they don't do the right thing, though it's right there in their hands. How do we decide? And there are times that the shortcuts really just cut us too deep. But like anything, the basic skills, what are you actually in control of, right? It's very important that you know what you're actually in control of. There are two things that are entrusted to you involuntarily. One is your body. Next is your breath. But the one thing that you own is your mind. That's exclusive to you, right? So when you look at these, do I take the shortcut or the long way around? Well, there is a theory that you have to enjoy, or you have to understand why you take the long way around. In the beginning, you get calloused, practiced, you get the experience, you understand. So when you start making things, what so many of us want, efficient, or the fastest way or the correct way without having to take the long way, then we have something to work with. But when you get to mastery in anything that you do, anything at all, when you look at actually what's in place, there are quite a few times that taking the long way, going through the procedure, if you have 22 steps, you can't skip step 5 and 12 without having consequence. Now I have some comments over on YouTube. Let's see, my good friend Nabil. Hey, what's going on, my friend? Hello. Let's see what else you got to say. He says, hope you're doing good. Thank you. But he has a further comment talking about Jason. Do you think that with everything going on, it's okay for people making fun of it and memes by the names of the freedoms and jokes? That's an interesting question. And what he's talking about, I was referring to those who just entered the room on Breakout. I was talking about the submersible that was lost at sea recently this week. Now, to answer that question, a Stoic would say, what is the emotional value by you pointing it out? What do you need to do to address? How could your behavior change those who are making memes about it? People have feelings about the sunken submersible. People have feelings like, why did they make a submersible? Why did they allow this thing out to sea if it was controlled by an Xbox controller, right? Why would somebody pay 250,000 plus to take a chance to go down to a sunken ship over 100 years ago in literally 2.5 miles deep of water where there is no rescue, there's depth, and they had all these mishaps, and I think that's kind of interesting because it's like they wanted to be the first. Like, for example, Blue Origin or SpaceX. People wanted to go to space. Even Captain Kirk, James, what's his name? Not Leonard Nimoy. God, what's his name? Well, let's just say Captain Kirk from Star Trek, right? The old series. William Shatner, that's right. He went up into space. He went into stratosphere to see space. He put his life in danger, and so many other famous rich people did the same thing. Are these people any different than the people that went down in that sub? In theory, they're not. So when people make fun of them, we don't have control of those people, but we have control of our responses. We have understanding of that it may not be the right thing to do, but you can choose the right thing to do, and you can make an impact on people, not necessarily telling them what to do. You can also just say, you know what? That's a series of unfortunate events, and I'm sorry that those people passed. You can be the one to make that impact. But to get back on topic, to get right back on why the shortcuts. We are in a world right now of shortcuts. Going after a career, going after college, finding a profession is not the most equitable thing nowadays. People don't trust the education systems. They don't trust the monetary systems. They do not trust a lot of things, the news that we're fed every day. And when we look at what's in play, then we're questioning, are you trustworthy to behold in my company? Are you going to be the one that I have to excommunicate from my presence? You know what? I don't waste time with short stack people or people that are always emotionally unsound. But see, it goes back to my quote that nobody is self-made. Everybody has a self-interest, but you are community built. That does mean that you can make a positive influence on people to making better decisions, not the right decisions, but better decisions, because each of us are in charge of our own way. No matter right or wrong, we have to choose. And the Stoics were really emphatic about understanding your emotional stuff. They wasn't saying just be in control, but understand what's in your control. If I can't fix somebody and I can't make them see, can I accept them for where they're at? He says, Neville says another good point. He says, you got a good point, regardless of how stupid the execution was. The old question, is it okay to have fun with it? Of course, it could be. You could have fun with it if you wanted to, but what does it bring to your reputation? The Stoics would ask that. They would ask you, what are you gaining out of this by correcting or not correcting? What if you choose your path, your attention, in your fashion and not everybody else's? Because that's what we really got to think about. We got to think about, no matter what you do, shortcut or long way around to things, what will be the best benefit to you? It doesn't matter if you're faking it till you make it or you spent years of study to be that professional. It's that you have the capacity to do. You have the capacity to be able to explain what to somebody else. This is a path that works versus this is an opportunity and a consideration you might want to take. But if it doesn't work, let me know, and that's kind of dangerous. So if you think about the sub, it's like, hey, they took the risk. I don't want to make fun of them. Some people may say it's a distraction, and it could be, but it doesn't mean that it needs to last forever. It means that what is proper in your attention. Do you have loved ones that need your attention? Is there a book? Is there a process? Do you want to learn a language that would benefit you? Say, like, if you spent, let's say, 30 minutes a day going to learn a language, right? Let's just take Spanish. If you are in a community where there are prevalently Spanish speakers, Spanish buyers for whatever your business is, how much more opportunity would it bring you versus let's pay attention to what Donald Trump was being indicted for. But see, that's the thing. Our minds, our convenient minds will talk us out of doing those things. Even though, yeah, I should. How many times have you said, I should do this? I should really do that. Or you've said to your friends, we should do this. And you're just saying it in passing to friends with no merit and no weight. Now, I'm going to take a brief break on what I'm saying. So I want to welcome in all those on Breakout. Thank you so much, my friends, for being loyal listeners and participants. Jenny from the block, Ginger, Beth Hessian, and Caroline Boyd, thank you so much for being here. Do you guys have any comments of what you've heard so far? What do you think? Do you think that is there an appropriate time for shortcuts, and is there a better time for the long way around? What do you guys think? Any comments or thoughts?
Well, I myself would love to have shortcuts to do anything that I'm working on. However, I'm not one who would take a shortcut unless I know for sure guaranteed that I would have the same expected outcome. So I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Has there ever been a time, Caroline, where you really appreciated the long way around versus a shortcut to the same thing?
I don't understand what you're asking me. I'm sorry.
Okay, so put it like this. Is there a time where it took you a long time to learn something, right? And then you found out a shortcut way of doing the same thing, but the long way around taught you the maturity of why you do the long way versus the shortcut. They both kind of get you to the same destination, but they both, in the end, have different value. Does that help?
I think I would. Yes, I think that I would definitely appreciate going the long way around so that I could, in fact, appreciate the reasoning behind doing it the long way. So yes, I would.
Yeah, and there's things where now looking back, I'm glad I took the long way, for speaking for myself. But the same question to everybody else in the room. Has there been a time in your life where you really appreciated that you did it the long way versus later you found out a shortcut? Has there been a time for you? Oh, and welcome Julie Locum into the room. Um, Jenny, Beth, or Ginger, has there been a time where you appreciated that it took you a little bit longer, but later you found out a shortcut, but you may appreciate the long way around? If you guys care to answer.
Hey, good morning. This is Ginger. Yeah, I just want, it made me think that this is a great topic. It made me think I was in basic training for the Navy, and we all know how long that is. And then, it's just weeks of grueling exercise and mental exercise as well. And after that, went on to AT school. So when I was stationed in Central America, we had this one lady that just arrived, and she just came from and she was an officer, and she just I had to remind her to put her cover on when we were outside, and saluting, like she just would not do any of that. She would just, oh, okay, oh, I forgot, oh yeah, here, let me get that. And we went through such a discipline, and then I asked her, I said, so, well, short story short, long story short, just come to find out that she had gone the college route. So she went straight to college, and then out of college, boom, and became like a first class officer. So she didn't have to go through basic training. She bypassed all the hard work. She bypassed everything that we had to go through. So she didn't understand exactly what needed to be done. So I saw that it made me appreciate more of what I had gone through and versus what she did, because no one had any respect for her at all, because she hadn't been there. And I saw it that way. Sorry, that was a little long-winded, but it's a long time since I've thought about that basic training.
It's okay. And I like that example. I mean, their officers go through several different routes. They go through RTC, or they go through officer candidate school, or they go through the Naval Academy. And each of those are long ways around. Like they're going to drill like it's a weekend warrior thing. And then there's times of the day that they have to attend a part of their RTC program classes. But how does that really relate to an enlisted person? Now, I'm a retired Navy vet, and I can tell you that enlisting in something is much more different than what I've seen officers go through, but they each have their value, right? And to be a leader, so to speak, it's different. You can't, one of the things that I can say in the Navy, when you got a master chief on board and gives a lieutenant, not an order, but a point of view. He's not telling him what to do, but the officer needs to rely on his subordinates who have the experience. It matters in the long run. But to get to the point, um, it comes with a cost. And when you're lack in, just because you have the role of an officer doesn't mean you have the respect as an officer. Everyone knows that in the military. It doesn't matter what branch you serve, doesn't matter who and what you were doing. If you want respect of your men and women, you can't just be a hard ass and say that's it. I mean, there's much, much more that goes into leadership. There's much more that goes, and trust me, I've seen some non-commissioned officers versus commissioned officers who really just don't know what the hell they're doing and could get people killed or put them in more peril or danger. But when we look at the shortcuts, eventually you do learn. If you, let's say, like, you learn the shortcut first, right? In anything, you're going to learn real quickly of the emotional and physical stress in anything that you do. And then when you learn about the long way of doing things, then you're also going to learn if you're smart enough, if you're intelligent and observant enough that, like, look, if I would have learned this, doing my shortcuts would have been so much better because I understand if I cut things out, I can be in a bad, worse position. It doesn't have the enrichment. And an example of that is when we buy our name brands for our clothing. When you see that, say, like Levi jeans, when they were made in the US versus being made in Korea or China, you feel the difference. Same design, same product line, but when the care that it takes to assemble a pair of jeans, it matters. People, when they start feeling the difference, the quality's not there, then they kind of skip out and they kind of just said, well, hey, you know what? I don't need all that. I don't need. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just speaking of cutting things out and when the quality goes away. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. And so for a long time, a lot of brands out there are betting on the reputation of the quality of what, and so they do commit to shortcuts. When certain products are made overseas where they were made in certain regions, you can't ignore what people put in pride in things and taking the time to develop that product. And now we're kind of like in a disposable society where we buy things and we're quickly to throw them away when they're not as good as what they once were. So that's something. So let me take a brief break. Julie, good morning. Thanks for coming on in. I appreciate you. Do you have any
Hey
thoughts?
there. How's it going? Ginger Snaps in the house. Jason B is in the house.
That's right.
I love
Go ahead.
I am interested in, I have to be honest, like sometimes I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, why can't something go viral one day in my life? Make it real easy for me. And I've been working my tail off, right, for a long time, but the slow and steady wins the race for sure. And this is what I'm seeing now with ChatGPT. Everyone thinks it's a shortcut, but I'm going to tell you, it's really, really not. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, interesting you bring that one up because I was looking at TikTok and now they're looking for ChatGPT or AI prompt engineers. This is a new career. This is a new work field that not many people really know about and and there are courses you can now take through open AI and other forums to learn to be a prompt engineer. And what is that? A prompt engineer, when it comes to open AI or ChatGPT or some kind of software that does things for you, you're going to have to put in the right commands to be able to tell it, say, hey, write me a script for Rise and Grind on shortcuts. Okay, it can write you one, right? But if you give it no context, it's not going to relate to how you feel or what your experience is. You're going to have to put in keywords and certain styles, and you're going to have to do this. And it becomes, again, a task. So really, I like what you just said right there, because a lot of people and businesses are now resorting, well, do I need the data entry people that I've had always? Maybe. Maybe I don't. Do I need the customer service, or can I use a chat bot to answer commonly answered questions when it comes to customer service? And the common theme right now is people want a real person to talk to according to their region. And I was looking at this in business, and I was looking at this, just matter of fact, yesterday, because the one common complaint is when people can't get a direct answer, a human, responsible, accountable answer, they're pissed. And guess what? Profit margins shrink real quickly. But if the industry keeps doing it and more companies adopt it, it's like, oh, well, why am I going to hire 150 people when I only have to hire 10, really? And then I have a chat bot that does the same thing, saves me time and money. Who's right or wrong? But what you lose in connection with people, whether you use ChatGPT or a chatbot for whatever your service is, when you use these things, there is a cost. There truly is a cost. I've got some more comments over on YouTube. Says, in the end, everyone is serving and working their own purpose. Eventually, remember that you'll never be disappointed. Interesting. I see another comment says, you got how stupid. Oh, wait, no, I already read that comment. Thanks, Nubble, overseas. And I believe, Nubble, you're in Turkey, right? So anyhow, but Julie, I'm glad you brought that up. Do you use, allegedly artificial intelligence or augmented information? Do you use these devices to aid you in your daily work?
Do I? For some things, for non-important tasks, yes, but not for the important tasks, like writing articles, writing books, things that can easily be scanned and used as and you get flagged for plagiarism. This is where I'm seeing it going, because ChatGPT came onto the scene like amazing, but as I've gotten to know a little bit more about it, it is being flagged everywhere as plagiarized material. And as a writer, as an author, I can't be using this and risk my reputation and shut everything down, my business. And that's the detriment to taking shortcuts like ChatGPT. Do I use it for my social media posts? Yeah. Heck yeah. Because I hate doing that. Sometimes I use them in email generation. Why not? But I always put my spin on it, and I always have to use my voice. AI can't mimic my voice and my message. So that's one thing I would caution about to your audience.
Right. And I like that, because even in my YouTube description, what I did for my YouTube description of this show, I used an app called Paragraph AI. And what I did basically, I typed in the prompt, what I wanted, right? I put in exactly my thoughts. And then I added a filter, and I said I wanted it formal. I wanted it assertive, but I wanted some optimist to be an optimist, right? And I graded the levels in which I wanted, and I put it under businessman and in that mindset. And I looked at what it said, and then I looked also the neutral, the casual influencer, the copyright. I looked at all what the outcomes were for each style, right? And so I chose the business person because that was the most adequate that I could get behind. And that's the thing, is when we realize what is adequate versus let me take the time to really write it out. And to point out something you said, people are thinking that they can write books using these prompts, using these things, and it's not their words. It's somebody else's words. These data sources have collected information across the World Wide Web, and made an algorithm equation to put out an outcome of what it would write. So then we come across plagiarism, which is a big deal, because if AI wrote it, it's not you that scribed it, no matter how you try to put it. And you're not an authentic writer. It's not your ideas, it's somebody else's. But taking the long way around and writing. Now, Julie, I know that you like to write, right? You've encouraged me, hey, Jason, you should get into blogging, which guess what? I'm now learning about how to blog. Why am I learning about how to write? I am trained to be a good writer. But everything that you write for has a particular skill set. And I think that blogging definitely has that. Not to be too critical, but it's like how I put my thoughts sounding personal versus sounding like a robot, sounding like I wrote in legalese or whatever, or grammatically correct and everything. It doesn't always reach people. It doesn't always connect minds. But when you look at these devices and these aids, we can't get lost in the easy. The easy button does not always make it better. And I do appreciate the discipline of reading something and evaluate. I love reading books. I really do. I enjoy it because then it adds my imagination of where my mind is transcending me to the subject or the thing. Can I imagine what it feels like to do? Or you know what? I heard about this stuff, but now that I'm reading it, oh my God, I feel so much more informed. Has that happened to any of you? Have you heard something and then read about it later and you found out, well, that's not what it really was when I read it versus when I heard it? Have you come across that situation? Anyone can answer.
Can you repeat that question, Jay? Sorry.
Have you ever come across a time where you heard something, say like on the news, but then you or whatever, you heard it from somebody, right? And you come to later, you end up reading about it, and what people said, you heard them say vocally was not quite what it was really contextually described in written form. In other words, the written showed a lot more than what people said.
I don't know necessarily. I'm trying to think of an example, but I think that when people write things, you never get exactly what they say. There's always your own spin on it or the writer's spin on it. So it might seem a little bit different, if that makes sense.
Right. And a perfect example of that is, you've ever played the grapevine game? You tell somebody something, right?
We call it the telephone game.
Yeah, the telephone
back in the
game.
day.
Yeah, you can call it that, whatever, however you position it. You play the telephone game and you tell one person, and then they got to tell the next person. The message, more than likely, at the end, after a certain number, is not going to be closely related to what you said. And in the legal environments and in the courts, that's why we have the terms hearsay. You heard it, but doesn't mean that's necessarily what you heard is what is. We can't confirm what you heard is fact or relatable or a point of merit. We can't ignore that. And what we do nowadays is there's so much sensationalism, the influence of what we say versus what it actually is. And you read verbatim, like, wow, this is not what it says. Like when I was in Clubhouse yesterday and in this room called Debate the News, and they were talking about the lost sub, right? Bring that back around. And one of the guys had said, I heard through the Wall Street Journal that the United States Navy had a secret sub and they found the imploded submersible. And my question as a Navy vet, that had not been published. I said, has DOD, the Department of Defense, or the Department of Navy, the Chief Admiral of the Navy, have they gone on record, or their PR people gone on to say that they found through one of their vessels whether secret or not, found the submersible. And where did they find the imploded vessel? 1,600 feet off the bow. They found the end cap cone. So we don't know at what depth it imploded. We just know that this thing did not survive, nor did the people. But this guy went on to say, well, a secret sub, according to the Wall Street Journal. Well, can you give me that article? Can you actually tell me the quote? Who out of the Navy was quoted in saying that? Because I didn't hear it. And the guy kind of recanted his what he was saying. Well, I heard it. Okay, so now you heard it. You didn't read it, right? So now I have to really sort through, is there any merit to what he's saying? What did the Wall Street Journal say in the last couple days? I had to go look for it, and the Navy made no claim. They did not make no claim saying they found it. It took a day or so of the United States Coast Guard had a search rover vehicle, and it took about a day to get down to that depths for it to find the debris field of where the remnants of was it Ocean Gate submersible was. So again, it's like somebody took the shortcut, thought they'd add an interesting anecdote in a room for discussion, but we couldn't verify it. So by someone taking the long way around, and like someone like me, and saying, okay, well, that's interesting, but can you verify this? That's where it gets lost in translation. So that would be an example of what I'm talking about. So anyhow, it is coming to the top of my time here on YouTube and Breakout. People have come and gone, and I appreciate all those who come in, listen, and participate in these mindful topics. So think about ahead. I am going to do a recap this weekend for Rise and Grind on Sunday brunch. And then Monday, we should be live here on Breakout with the big idea. I believe we're going to be talking, me, Julie, and Dragon will be having a meeting talking about what we're going to discuss. So I believe as it stands right now, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern. And I don't even know what time South Africa time, but we'll figure it out, So make sure that you tune in on those shows. We'll try to calendar them. They'll be live on Breakout and Clubhouse and the big idea room. So if you can't attend Breakout, you have the capacity to be able to do so. We will maybe eventually be producing this for YouTube and broader other platforms, but for right now, it's just going to be Breakout and Clubhouse. So if you have not found me for recorded listeners, subscribe to 72 the Architect, either on here Breakout or Clubhouse, YouTube, whatever. It's all the same. And hopefully by the 1st of July, I will have my brand new podcast show called My Daily Circus, or My Daily Stoic Circus. Yes. I'm looking forward to producing that. And it's just going to be the extension of Rise and Grind. Rise and Grind will not be used as a primary label because too many people have it. So I got to be creative. So any closing notes from anybody else? Any thoughts before we close the show out?
I love it. You ran with the circus theme. That is fantastic. Congratulations. I know you were, going through time, getting that squared away, and that sounds perfect. So I'm curious. I know you had done one room over on Clubhouse that you're doing over here. Are you not? I'm curious if you'll start doing that again.
I'll be simulcasting them both at the same time here and there.
Love it. Perfect. Yeah, I'll probably catch you on the Clubhouse side for reasons. Yeah, thanks.
No problem. Yeah, we want to spread out the brand as much as possible, and the show. We want to diversify the show, not just have one platform, but Breakout is where we got started with the big idea. And we're going to give, I don't want to say it's first dibs, but definitely this is the origin of where it started. And we're going to take the show and hopefully make it a wonderful product that everyone can enjoy. Julie, any thoughts before I close out? She may be busy.
No, I get locked out of my phone, when it's
when it goes to
quiet
sleep
for a little bit. Yeah. So I was like, oh, God. No, I'm just glad that you're talking about this because there's no such thing as a shortcut. Maybe once in a while you hit the jackpot or hit luck, lady luck, if you will. But to be honest, it really is about using elbow grease, ingenuity, and just keep on keeping on. There's no such thing as an easy win. Lean into hard, and that's when the easy comes.
Mm-hmm. Slow and steady. Slow and steady makes the consistent. I like that. Keep on. Makes me think of Joe Dirt, the movie. I like that. I like that. You just got to keep on keeping on, man. You know. So, anyways, all right, you guys, I'm going to close out the show. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on Rise and Grind next week. I believe next week will be my last week using the Rise and Grind label, but I will be on the Big Idea. I'll see you guys out there. Thanks for attending. Appreciate y'all.